Great.
What about that?
Yeah, well, you're on. All right, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, everyone. I'm Carol Burnett with the Mississippi Low Income Child Care Initiative. I want to welcome all of you to this webinar. It's the first of several that we plan to offer our child care network to answer the many questions that are on your minds during these uncertain times. This morning, we welcome Mr. Tate Reeves, who is with us from the Mississippi Department of Employment Security. He's going to talk to us today about unemployment and changes to unemployment that were made recently by Governor Reeves. I want to thank Mr. Reeves so much for agreeing to join us today to make himself available to answer your questions. I just want to let everyone know we're going to begin with comments from Mr. Reeves. From Mr. Rush, I'm sorry. And if you have a question, type it into the Q&A box, not the chat box, and we'll try to get to all the questions that are submitted today. If there are questions that we don't have time to answer, we're going to respond to you by email. On a regular computer, that Q&A button is going to be on your control panel that's located at the bottom of your Zoom webinar screen. If you're on a mobile device, like a smartphone or a Q&A function is going to be found by tapping your presentation screen and the controls will pop up into view. We're going to record this webinar and we're going to send a link along with answers to the questions that arise in this webinar, so you'll be able to refer back to it and also to share it with those who weren't able to participate today. Mr. Rush, we have child care providers on this webinar who are small business owners. They've either kept their centers open despite very low enrollment, or they've had to close their centers. They have staff and parents who have experienced job loss as a result of coronavirus. Can you just talk to us about what people who've lost their jobs at this time need to do in order to take advantage of unemployment, what new rules they might need to know about, and what they can expect? So if you would just give us an overview before we take questions, that would be very helpful.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Tate Reeves with the Mississippi Department of Employment Security. I'm the Reemployment Assistance Office Director. The unemployment system is operated and federally funded for individuals who are out of work no farther they're on. In some cases, individuals are either separated due to a lack of work, such as a reduction in workforce or a reduction in hours, totally separated from the employer by a permanent layoff, a separation due to a discharge or voluntarily quitting. I would suppose for the most part, individuals who are on the phone or part of the webinar, should I say, are interested about benefits if you're being laid off or reducing hours. Individuals under regular circumstances or normal circumstances are required to be able, physically and mentally able to work, available for work, meaning that there are no restrictions that you can go to work, restriction due to a lack of transportation, lack of child care, or other responsibilities that would prohibit an individual from being able to accept a job and report to work. And also actively seeking and applying for work. Under the current
Mr. Rush, could I, we're getting some requests that your volume get turned up a little bit so it's easier to hear. So if you could speak a little louder, that would be super helpful.
Let's see if I do this. Is that any better?
If you can just speak louder, we good.
Okay.
Yes,
I'll try.
That's much better. Thank you.
I'll try to speak a little close to the mic if that will help as well. So for for the most part, let me try to summarize basically indicated about the eligible requirements. Individual must be able, available to work, and also serve. Under the current executive order of Governor Reeves, the requirements to be able to work and available for work or under consideration. We're hoping that that will be waived. The current executive order excuses an individual from having to apply for work, meaning look for work, and also suspends the 1-week waiting period. So essentially, if an individual is laid off due to a lack of work or a reduction in their hours of work, they will be required to file a claim and establish a profile. That's something I will talk about a little more in detail. And then once you've done that, you are required to complete a weekly certification showing that you're available for work and didn't refuse any work. And if you did do any work, report any earnings that you made while you were filing benefits for that particular week. So to be clear, as it ends now, the current executive order from the governor suspends or relaxes the requirement that the individual has to look for work, and that the waiting period is suspended. So that being said, if an individual is off from work and file their claim, usually within 10 to 14 days, they should be receiving their first payment. We're experiencing an extremely high volume of claims and calls coming into our contact center. So we encourage individuals to go online if they can self-service themselves and have access to the internet. They can go to our system via the web and file a claim online. There are pending requests for more relaxed regulations. We hope to get something from the governor today or before the next week starts. And if that happens and if they're approved, and some of the requirements regarding an individual being able physically and mentally to work and available to work will be suspended. So let me talk just a moment about the filing. If an individual is late for their work hours have been reduced, we encourage them to visit the agency's website at www.mdes.ms.gov. Again, that's www.mdes.ms.gov. Ms. Burnett, I did send you a copy of some instruction right before the webinar, so you may be able to share that with the audience before we finish the session today, the agency's web address and phone number. If you do not have access to the internet, you can call the toll-free contact center number, and the number is 1-888-844-3577. Again, that's 1-888-844-3577. And a direct number is area code 601-855-3133. We just extended our contact center business hours this past weekend, last Saturday, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we're hoping to expand those hours starting Monday possibly from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And the updated work hours will at the agency's webpage. So if you can get to the webpage and see what the work hours are, but as of now, it's 12 hours a day, hoping to expand that Monday out 10 o'clock. Individuals on the phone, we're experiencing right now, unfortunately, Ms. Burnett, excessive wait times. We just increased the number of phone lines from 400 to 900 as of Monday in order to accommodate individuals who are having to file claims. And we're still experiencing extreme, highly extensive wait time. So I would encourage anyone who cannot file online, if you must call, I would just calling maybe close to 5 o'clock or 5:30 outside of peak hours. And if you get in the queue and wait before 7 o'clock as it is now, they will not turn you away. They won't hang up on you, and you should be able to be serviced before the end of the day. I know last night they were here close to 10 o'clock for persons who were waiting to speak to somebody. So next week, we're hoping to expand those hours from 7 to 10 p.m. And as we are able to hire additional staff and train individuals, we hope to have the call center open 24 hours a day. So that's my goal at this point. But we certainly encourage everyone that can to go online and file that claim. That system is open 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, so you can self-service yourself at any time. Let me talk a little bit about the Monetary Act of Eligibility. The individual who is filing for benefits, the time period that you will have to have been employed for a period of 18 months is the window. And right now, the base period we refer to as base period earnings, you would have to have been employed from September of October, of 2018 through September 2019. So that's as of the end of this month. Starting April, let me calendar here, the first Sunday in April, the quarter will change. So starting April the 5th, the base period will change, and you will be determined, your eligibility will be determined based upon wages or employment you would have had between January of 2019 through December of 2019. So any claim that's filed in March through April the 4th, your claim determined based upon earnings you received from October of 2018 through September of 2019. And if your claim is filed after April the 5th through that quarter, which ends June 30th, then it will be based upon wages you received or earned from January 2019 through December 2019. Each claim is determined based upon earnings, gross earnings received or earned during that window of time. And there's a calculation, a formula that determines how much a person will qualify for. The minimum amount of benefits is $30 a week, and the maximum is $235 a week. So the minimum, again, based upon the person's earnings during that 18-month period of time is, well, 12-month period of time is a minimum of $30 up to a maximum of $235. We are proposing another executive order resolution to the governor that we would raise the allowance. Currently, the allowance is that an individual can earn up to $40, that's $40 before any earning is reduced or deducted from his or her unemployment compensation. So essentially, if a person qualifies for the maximum amount of benefits, which would be $235, if you're working part-time and say you earn $40 from maybe working a half a day or a day, you would be eligible for the entire $235 for that particular week. So essentially, you want to figure out what it would be entitled to if you're working part-time and you qualify for the maximum of $235. You could take the $235 and add $40 to that, and that will give you $275. And if you were working part-time, just say you earned $200, then you receive $75 from for unemployment. So anything above the $40 will be deducted from the unemployment benefits. I hope that's not too confusing. I'll be glad to answer any questions if somebody has regarding that. The benefits claim period is open for 52 weeks, which is 12 months. So once a person files a claim, it's open 1 year. And if you are unemployed during the entire period and file consecutive weeks, there are 26, on average, 26 weeks of benefits in that claim period. So if you start filing a claim in April, it will be based upon earnings you receive working from January 2019 through December 2019. And your claim will be open from that week you file in April of 2020 through April of 2021. However, you will only have 26 weeks of available benefits if you're filing each week and drawing your maximum unemployment benefits. There is some pending legislation, proposed bill from Congress. At this point, I don't know the status of that. Last I checked, it had not been signed by President. And if it is signed, I understand it's a possibility. I don't know all the details at this point that individuals would be given additional money on top of their regular state benefits. So maybe once that bill passed, Ms. Burnett, if you want me to come back and talk to you and your audience about that and how that will impact employees, I'll do my best to make myself available to come back and address that as well. So if you're going to file, if you're going to file, there are a few things that you need to have before you go online or contact the contact center. And I'm going to read those for you. And it's a part of that information, Carol, that I sent if you had a chance to access that. One is you must have your identification, meaning the name that you have on the birth certificate or on your current public identification. So your full name, full legal name, your signed social security number, your full number. You need to have access, excuse me, have access to your driver's license or your state issued identification number. Or if you're not American citizen, you must have an alien registration number or visa number, and the name and address of your last and most recent employer, and any employers that you had worked for in the last 18 months. It's important to know the date that you started working, and more importantly, the last day of work. Each employer that you worked for in the last 18 months would be notified that a claim has been filed, and that potentially charges will be charged against their employer's account. So they have to be notified that a claim has been filed by an individual who's worked for in the last 18 months. Once a claim is filed, each week, if the individual qualifies for benefits, they will be sent, and this is not each week, so I got a little ahead of myself. If you qualify for benefits, you'll be issued a debit card by a provider. They'll mail that to the address of record. And each week when you file your weekly certification, that can be done online, again, 24 hours a day, or call the contact center if you don't have access to online capability, and they will assist you in filing your weekly certification. And that weekly certification basically asks 3 questions. 1, were you able to work? 2, were you available to work? And 3, did you do any work? And if you did work, then it will ask you to provide the name of the business you work for, the hours you work, the rate of pay, and your gross earnings. And that will be used to determine how much partial benefits that you will receive for that particular week. And that's done on a weekly basis. So you potentially will be filing for 26 weeks and submitting that weekly certification. The certifications can be filed after midnight of the ending week. So for instance, if you file a claim today, your claim becomes effective the Sunday of the week that you file it. So any week, any work that an individual would have performed during the week that he or she filed from Sunday through Saturday would be reportable work and reportable earnings. So for instance, if somebody's planning to file or needs to file a claim next week, and then the claim will become effective this coming Sunday. And if you don't work any next week, then there will be no need to report any earnings. That week will be considered your first week. Normally it would be an eligible waiting period week, but under the current executive order, that week will be suspended as a waiting period week. You'll satisfy that requirement. And then after Sunday, let me get my calendar in, Carol, so I can speak specifically here. So for instance, if an individual files a claim next week, which would be the 29th, so the calendar claim week start on Sunday and end on Saturday, and Saturday at midnight. So if a claim is filed anytime after March 29th through April the 3rd, then that claim can be, weekly certification can be filed on Sunday morning, the 5th. So we have people who file claims as early as 2 a.m. in the morning. So the sooner the claim weekly certification is filed, the sooner the money on the debit card, which the individual will be mailed. So you can't file before the week is ended, but you can file as soon as the new week starts Sunday morning. And I would encourage everyone who is filing or plans to file your weekly certification as soon as you can. It doesn't have to be filed on Sunday, but that's the earliest you can file it. But you must file it before Saturday, before midnight Saturday, in order to be paid for the previous week. If an individual has other employment in the last 18 months that is not with their most recent employer, in addition to their most recent employer, and depending upon the reason for separation from those previous employers, an investigation may be conducted to determine if the person has earned enough money to requalify since they left that employment, or if they had good cause for leaving. So that's the reason why the other employers who you may have worked for during the past 18 months would need to be notified that a claim has been filed. So eligibility can be decided and whether or not the employer's account will be charged for benefits paid. If an individual is denied benefits, they have a right to file an appeal and be heard by an administrative law judge or ask for consideration if additional information is provided to determine that they're eligible for benefits. And filing an appeal can be done online as well. And if a decision is made, the appeal may be filed following the instructions that will be outlined on that decision. Usually, hearings are scheduled within 1 to 2 weeks and decision within a week to 10 days after that. However, with the high volume of claims, that period may be extended. I don't know if there are any specific questions, Ms. Barnett, but if they are, I will be glad to try to entertain them.
I do have quite a number of questions. The first one, do people have to look for a job during this time in order to qualify to receive unemployment?
Not at this time. The governor has signed that executive order, so the work search requirement has been suspended.
I've gotten a number of questions about whether church-based child care centers are eligible.
That's a good question. They may be in some cases if they're incorporated, and the employer would know whether or not they register that business as a covered employer business, covered employment business, pay unemployment insurance for those individuals. So in some cases they are, and in other cases they aren't, depending on how it was established as an LLC or as an incorporation or a nonprofit. But the employer would know whether or not they are required and currently paying unemployment insurance for those workers.
One question is, can employee file for unemployment where a business has an outstanding balance with the Department of Employment Security?
Mm-hmm. Yes, the worker, though the employee, is not responsible for any. Well, maybe I misunderstood the question. So let me answer two ways. If the outstanding balance is the tax owed by the employer for the employees, then it will not impact the employees. So if, for instance, Mississippi Department of Employment Security, who I work for, has an outstanding tax debt with the state, then, and I'm laid off as an employee, I'll be eligible to receive benefits, and the tax debt owed by the agency will not prohibit me from filing. In some cases, individuals who have filed previously were issued benefits for which they may not have been entitled to, and therefore an overpayment would have been set up on that account and on that individual claim, and those individuals normally would be given an opportunity to pay that money back before they will be eligible to receive additional benefits. So in this case, if a person has an outstanding debt, then that debt has to be settled in part before they receive their full benefits. In some cases, depending upon whether the overpayment was fraudulent or not, individuals would not be receiving any benefits until the overpayment was paid back in full. If it was not a fraudulent overpayment, then they could receive partial benefits, and each week money deducted from those benefits to settle the outstanding overpayment, but they could receive a partial amount until the overpayment is complete or satisfied.
Thank you. And another question is, a child care center has had to reduce the hours their staff are working. So they used to be full-time 8 hours a day, but now are only working 4 hours a day. Can the employee file for the difference between their part-time status now and the full 8 hours they would normally be working if this hadn't occurred.
They are eligible to file. The amount of unemployment benefit will be determined based upon what their maximum weekly benefit amount is, and any earnings that they receive over the $40 allowance will be deducted from their unemployment benefits. Mississippi does not have what is referred to by the federal government as a work share program, whereby the employer pays a portion of their salary, and then the unemployment system pays another part of their salary to supplement their part-time work. But yes, an individual may file, can file, and I would encourage them to file if they are experiencing a reduction of hours, and if the employer encourages them to do that, and the earnings that the employer is paying or receiving from working part-time would be deducted from their unemployment benefit. Again, we are seeking and waiting for another executive order from the governor that would have some impact on that. So currently the allowance is $40, and the proposed recommended allowance would be $100. So an individual could work and receive partial income from their employer, and the first $100 of that would be exempt from the deduction from the unemployment benefits.
Thank you. Another question, will exemptions be made so that employees could be eligible for unemployment if they work for an employer that has been exempt from paying into unemployment up to this point?
Currently, there is no provisions. Again, I understand that there was some federal legislation possibly coming out today or tomorrow, if signed by the president, that would possibly allow individuals who are not covered under their state unemployment program to receive some unemployment benefits.
Thank you. We had one question about whether having employees file in this time period is going to impact the employer's rate of charge through the unemployment system.
Yes, currently that is the law. That is another provision that we're asking the governor to suspend those rules. And if that's signed by the governor, I'm sure it would become public notice, and that would in fact relieve any employer that's a chargeable employer of charges for claims filed. It may it may not relieve reimbursable employers such as political subdivisions, nonprofits, municipalities of their burden to reimburse the fund. However, there's pending legislation from both the federal level and consideration from the state level to relieve the reimbursable employer of that liability as well. But currently, as it stands, both the rated employer and the reimbursable employer would be liable for claims filed.
Thank you. I've had a couple of questions about categories of employees. Are employees who are self-employed eligible? And are employees who are contract employees eligible?
Depends, Carol. If the self-employed individual has a company and that individual has registered that company, and is currently assigned an unemployment tax account and is paying unemployment taxes, then that individual should be eligible and entitled to unemployment benefit. For those who may be contractual employees or workers, here I say, if they are not registered and have an unemployment account, then they would not be covered under the unemployment program. There is, again, pending legislation coming from the White House that will address those individuals who are self-employed and those who are contractual laborers under what's being referred to as pandemic unemployment compensation, similar to DUA, which is disaster unemployment compensation. So nothing has, to my knowledge, has been signed as of now. I'm anticipating something coming out today or tomorrow or this weekend, and that very well, based upon what I've seen in the bill, I think passed by the House, it does contain language that will relieve employers of liability, both rated employers and appears to be reimbursable employers, and cover those who are contract workers and those who are self-employed.
Thank you. I've had a number of questions about whether or not employees of nonprofit child care centers are eligible for unemployment.
In some cases they are. It depends upon whether or not that nonprofit has registered with the state, with Mississippi Employment Security, and has issued an unemployment tax identification number, and whether or not they have are paying or have paid unemployment taxes. If they have done that and they are registered, then those employees would be covered. If they aren't registered and would like to see whether or not they are liable or can register, then they can contact my office, and we'll be glad to look at their circumstances and determine whether or not they should be covered or not.
All right. I had a question about whether or not an employer will be reimbursed for unemployment claims the state approves.
That's two types of employers. One is an employer that pays a quarterly tax or has a tax rate, and then there's a reimbursable employers who, again, like those who are municipalities, nonprofits, and governmental entities. Currently, if benefits paid, there is, to my knowledge, as I speak now, no provision that would give the employer a reimbursement. The proposed consideration at the governor's office, if it's signed and approved, would give a relief of employers being charged for benefits paid. It is my understanding that the bill that currently been sent to the President of the United States would, in fact, provide some provisions for reimbursement to employers and possible relief of charges to employers for claims paid as a result of COVID-19. But until that's signed and passes, then there is no provision for that. But I'm hopeful that it will pass and get signed. And if so, then it will probably provide some relief and some possible reimbursement for benefits paid to employees.
Thank you. We've had a couple of indications that accounts that employees are attempting to update or provide information on online have been locked. Is there any advice that you would give about what to do in that situation?
Yes, if they are able to access their account online, and if they have used their account in the last, I believe, 18 months, they should go back to their account and create another username and password. They can do that online themselves. However, they would need information I indicated to you, more specifically their full name and social security number and date of birth. If they have not filed a claim, if they filed a claim in the last 18 months and their account is locked, they should be able to unlock that claim, depending on the reason why, if it has to do with their username and password, by submitting their current email address and asking for a verification of the email address through the system, and the system will send them an access code that they can key in and go in and unlock, excuse me, unlock their account. If their account is locked because of some pending investigation, then they would have to speak to a customer service representative to unlock their account. I would ask, I wouldn't suggest, but I would ask if that is the case for anyone who can't get through on the contact center to speak to someone, for them to contact the agency via email. At this point in time, we don't have chat capability, but we're working on that. But we do have access to receiving information by email, and the email that they can send it to is benefitpay at mdes.ms.gov. That's BENEFIT, benefit, pay, PAY, at mdes.ms.gov. Again, that's benefit pay at mdes.ms.gov. If you notice on the webpage, the agency's webpage, there's another email address that we just set up this week, and right now it's backed up. So the benefit pay doesn't have as much email in it as the other one. The other one is CV, like coronavirus, CV1919 at mds.ms.gov. That's CV coronavirus, CV1919 at mdes.ms.gov. So if you cannot get through to speak to somebody by phone, send an email. If you cannot get through those ways, then I would suggest going by contacting the local WIN Center. There are WIN Centers around the state. Most of them are closed to the general public because of the pandemic. However, there are individuals working in those locations, and they're taking customers by appointment only. So you may be able to call the local WIN Center and ask if you can have an appointment to come by there and speak to someone that may be able to assist them with unlocking their account, or sending a message to someone that can do that for them.
Thank you. I've had a
welcome.
number of questions that have to do with an employer either being a nonprofit or a church, or having employees paid through a grant. But in all of these cases, the employer has not paid into the unemployment program. Oh, you okay?
Yeah, just my sinus is draining. I apologize.
No problem. Anyway, the question is, if the employer has not paid into the unemployment system, are their employees still able to obtain unemployment benefits? And the circumstances where the employer may not have paid in are either the employer is a nonprofit, or they're exempt, or they have employees that have been paid through a grant, or they're church-based. But in all of these cases, the question is, can employees of those employers that haven't paid into the unemployment program still eligible to obtain unemployment benefits?
Under the current law, there is no provisions to cover those employees. If the employer is exempt from unemployment taxes, that means that the employer has not paid insurance for those individuals in the event that they're laid off, and they're not covered and don't have benefits paid in for them. That would be under some conditions, which may be in the bill signed by the president, that would add eligibility for those businesses that may be faith-based and exempt from regular unemployment benefits. If that's the case, then again, I'll be glad to try and come back and talk about that. And we'll put something on our agency's webpage to address that change in law. Currently, under the current law on Mississippi, there is no provision to find liable an employer who is exempt by state law from the unemployment program.
Okay, I had a question about a center where employees were laid off as of March the 25th. And the question is the waiting period for applying waived?
Yeah, the waiting period for applying for benefits was waived effective, I believe, March the 8th. So any claims filed after March 8th of 2020, that waiting period would be waived.
Okay, thank you. I had a question, if you would please repeat the phone number that an employee should call for filing a claim.
Sure, that's 1-888-844-3577. 1-888-844-3577, or area code 601-855-3133. 601-855-3133. There is another toll-free number that's intended to be strictly dedicated to assisting individuals who have password reset issues and user ID recovery issues. If a person cannot self-service themselves through the online portal, they can contact toll-free number 1-800-224-1388. That's 1-800-224-1388.
Thank you. And I had a couple of questions about, I think you addressed this in your opening remarks, but if you could just repeat how much time a person has to have worked in order to be eligible to draw unemployment, and also along the same lines, if a person worked in one position and then their employment was interrupted for a few months, but then they got a new job, what the employment requirements are for being eligible right now.
Currently, as we speak, the time period that their claim would be based upon earnings they received from October 2018 through September 2019. And that time period will be in effect through April the 4th. When the quarter changes on, I believe, April the 5th, their earnings, the claim will be based upon earnings they received from January 2019 through December of 2019. One of the eligibility requirements is you have to have earnings in two different quarters during that base period of time. So it doesn't have to be consecutive quarters, but it has to be at least 2 quarters in that time period. So again, the time period for any claims filed from today through the end, through April the 4th would be from October 2018 through September 2019. And any claims filed after April the 5th would be from January 2019 through December 2019. And a quarter is a 3 consecutive month period. The first quarter is from January through March. The second quarter is from April through June. And the third quarter is from July through September. And the fourth quarter would be from October through December. So they have to have earnings in at least 2 different quarters.
All right, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being available to answer all our questions. I would like to ask, we know that some of the federal legislation has included provisions for additional unemployment benefits for unemployed people at the state level. And does that mean that the State Department of Employment Security will then determine how that benefit will be made available to unemployed individuals in Mississippi? Do we wait to hear from your office about how those provisions will be available to us?
Yes, each state is responsible for administering the unemployment program in that particular state or territory. And based upon the federal guidance, we will apply that to the state program and notify those who are impacted by the bill, how to file benefits, what the eligibility requirements are, and what benefits they will be receiving. Currently, benefits are paid in Mississippi through a debit card. There is a provider that sends the eligible claimants a debit card whereby their money is posted weekly. If an individual elects to receive that money into their checking account, they can opt out of the debit card and ask to have that money directly deposited into their checking account. So at this point, Ms. Burnett, I don't know whether or not the law, the federal legislation would require a supplemental payment, meaning a separate payment in addition to what the state is paying, or whether or not that will be made in one payment so that the person who is receiving the benefits won't know whether or not it's partly from the state or partly from the federal government. But it would probably be, if I had something to say about it, probably one payment rather than 2 different transactions. So, but as soon as we know that information and be able to discern what the requirements are, we'll be glad to share that with you and your group.
All right, thank you. We had an additional question come in about whether your prior quarters of work were done in another state rather than in Mississippi. Would that individual still qualify?
Yes, they should. Again, it's going to be based upon how much they earn in what quarters. If there was something called or referred to as a combined wage claim, so an individual may have worked in multiple states and for different time periods, and therefore they may not have enough money paid into any one state to qualify for a claim with that state. However, when the claim is filed, there is a centralized interstate processing unit, or process, should I say, that determine where wages are. And if wages are in one state would be enough to qualify for a claim in that state alone, then that individual will be given a claim monetarily to determine how much they qualify for. And in some cases, depending upon when those individuals worked, they may have an option to choose to file against multiple states, but only one claim. So for instance, if an individual may have worked in Mississippi and Tennessee and maybe Alabama, and they don't have enough earnings to qualify for a claim in Mississippi, but if the wages from Alabama and Tennessee were transferred to Mississippi, they could qualify for a claim, and vice versa. So the wages could be transferred to Alabama from Mississippi and Tennessee and qualify for a claim in Alabama. When that does occur, usually the customer service representative from that particular state would let them know what their options are. Individual may qualify for more money in one state than the other, and it will be their choice to choose which state they prefer to file against.
Thank you. And one other, can you just say once more how a person qualifies to be eligible for the maximum benefit?
Well, I didn't really tell you that, but I'll try to take a
stab
at it.
Sorry.
That's okay, without looking at the federal reg, or the state reg. But basically, it's based upon the individual's highest quarter earnings in a high quarter. So they take the high quarter earnings and divide that by 26, which is the 26 weeks. And then they multiply that times 40, which is a qualifying amount. And if they have a total of what that 40 multiple is for the entire 4 quarters, then that's what they will qualify for. So they're determining how much they earn in a single quarter and look at all 4 quarters that they worked in and take the highest quarter. So for instance, a person has worked in 4 quarters, and in one quarter they received $3,000, another quarter $2,700, and another quarter $2,500, another quarter $4,000. They take the highest quarter, which would be the 4,000, divided by 26 weeks to determine whether or not they would qualify for at least 235, and they multiply that number that they divided by 26 times 40 to determine if they have a qualifying amount over the 4 quarters. So if they have, when you add all 4 quarters up and they have 40 times the result of the product of what they divided by 26, then that's how the monetary determination is derived.
I think I asked you this question, but again, I might have lost it. Does a self-employed person, is there a way a self-employed person could qualify for unemployment benefits?
If they are probably with the Secretary of State as a incorporation, and they have a tax ID number with the federal Department of Revenue, and they have registered with Mississippi Department of Employment Security as a incorporation and self-employed, and been issued a tax number, and they're reporting their earnings quarterly or paying taxes quarterly, they should be covered.
Okay. If a person only worked 1 quarter in 2020, would they qualify?
If that's the only earnings they have, they would not qualify. One of the qualifying provisions would be they have to have earnings in 2 different quarters in that base period. Under regular benefits, under extended, well, disaster benefits and maybe even under the pandemic benefits that's under the federal proposed legislation coming from Congress, they possibly would qualify with 1 quarter. But under the state program, they would not qualify. But under the proposed language coming from the federal Congress, they very well may qualify.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time that you've given us for this webinar. It's been really helpful for our participants. And once the final decision is made about federal unemployment benefits, maybe we'll ask you back to help us understand what that might make available for unemployed individuals.
Certainly. Thank you for the opportunity. I hope it was helpful, and look forward to hearing from you and your group. And if I can help in any way, or my staff can help in any way, feel free to call us. Lines may be busy, but we will get back to you as soon as possible.
Great, thank you so much. And I want to thank all of you who participated in our webinar today. And I want to let you know that we have one scheduled on Tuesday at 10 a.m. with the Mississippi Department of Human Services. They're going to come on to answer questions about the child care subsidy program. We have another scheduled for Wednesday, April 1st at 2 p.m. with the Mississippi Department of Health. And they're going to come on to answer questions about public health guidance for child care centers. We will send out an email with additional information about logging on for those webinars. And in the meantime, everyone stay healthy and safe. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Carol. Have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Goodbye.
Goodbye.